All right, welcome back. In this one, we're going to be coding rock, paper, scissors. Now that we know random, we can simulate randoming numbers, and from that, kind of randoming choices as a result. So let's get started. I'm going to show you what the final result looks like. You see, it's welcoming us. Let's play rock, paper, scissors. How many rounds? All right, please enter a positive, odd number, right? So the idea here is you can play like best 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 5, something like that. So we're going to enter a positive odd number, which is the number of rounds, and then from there we'll calculate, the best of. So let's do 3 rounds, right? Once we enter 3, that is a positive odd number. It says choose one, rock, paper, scissors. So we are presented with this menu, and what it's actually waiting on is a number choice, right? I'm going to choose rock. I'm big brained. You chose rock. The computer chose rock. That was a tie. It's asking us to please go again, right? The score is still 0-0 because of our tie. I'm going to go rock again. The computer chose paper. don't lose on the camera. All right, I'm going to swap it up. I'm going paper. That was a tie. I mean, the computer on the same page. I chose scissors. We keep tying. Oh no! All right. So ultimately, I chose rock. The computer beat me again by choosing paper, and we see a final score of 0-2, and then message indicating that we lost. So this is ultimately what we're going to code, and hopefully your luck will be a lot better than mine. Maybe the computer is just outsmarting me. Let's get started. I'm gonna go to File, New, Project. I'm gonna go Next, and I'm already in the correct folder, so I'm gonna make a new project here called rock, paper, scissors. And I'm going to do a new window so that I can drag over my code in case I need to refer to it. Let's expand our project folder, right click on the SRC and make a new Java class, which I'm calling rock, paper, scissors. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and plug in a main method. Our code, our end result, is ultimately going to be multiple rounds, but what I'm going to do is basically program what one game of rock, paper, scissors looks like, and then all we got to do is take that and put it in a loop, right? It's something we want to program what one game looks like from top to bottom, what one round, maybe I should say, and then all we got to do once we have that is take it and put it in a loop in order to play multiple rounds. I'm going to welcome the user. Let's play rock, paper, scissors. Okay, when we're looking at one round, what I'm talking about is that menu choice, right? The first thing whenever the round actually begins is that we're going to be presented with a menu. Let's take a look at the output again, right? This stuff dealing with the round, these 2 lines, I'm not doing that just yet. We will eventually. What that means is one round begins here. So let's actually start with that text-based menu. Okay, we're going to say something like choose one. And then I'm going to present them with a menu. You can use multiple SOPs here. You could also use strings. There's our text-based menu, right? If I was to run this right now, we would see this stuff out in the console. But ultimately what I'm doing is I'm asking the user to enter a value. So this means I need to bring in scanner. Right here is the text-based menu, which means I'm actually kind of ready to get the user input. So we're going to bring in scanner. We could actually create our scanner object pretty much anywhere in our main method so far. Let's go a little bit more traditional. Let's create it right here. I'm going to skip straight to step 2 of implementing scanner, right, where I'm creating my scanner object, which I'm going to call input. That's a new scanner that reads from the keyboard. And this is the prompt to the user. All right, so I have step 1, we've imported. Step 2, I've created my scanner object. This is my 3rd step where I've prompted the user. So now I'm actually ready for user input. Okay, so I'm going to, actually I'm getting the result now, so really I'm just ready to capture it. So I'm going to create an integer which I'll call choice, and it's going to be input.nextInt. Right, even like I'm giving them this text-based menu, right? But I'm providing numbers because that makes it a lot easier to get a choice for them, as opposed to them having to type out rock or paper or scissors. It is possible that you could basically accept a string and then check it to see did they enter a number or did they enter text, and decide what they actually did. So you could actually, in theory, give them the choice of number or text. That's beyond what we're doing, but I have basically gotten their choice. Now I need to figure out what is the computer working with, right? I can't determine a winner until I figure out what does the computer have. Looking at our output, ultimately what we did is we, kind of clarified, right? This is what we just done. The user entered 1, and then we said, you chose rock. So why don't we kind of put that back out to them, right? Show them that we're certain of their choice. That's just an if statement, right? I've gotten the input, right? So we've displayed this menu. Let's say the user enters 1. They chose rock. We want to tell them you chose. Here's where I definitely recommend a string. I'm going to create a string. I'm going to call it text choice. This is just going to be a text-based version of what they chose, right? And I'll just make that an empty string to start out with. But then we're going to go through a series of checks. If they entered a 1. If they entered a 1, how do I know? Well, choice is equal to 1. So if the user entered a 1, I'm going to change text choice to be effectively rock. We can actually get pretty smart with this, right? We can start, instead of an empty string, we could just say you chose along with our colon space, and then once we figure out what they chose, we add to it, right? I want text choice to be you chose along with rock. So I want it to be what it currently is plus rock. Hopefully you notice that this could just be done with a shorthand assignment operator. It's the same thing as saying plus equals rock, right? Let's continue to check for other possible choices. Else if the choice is a 2, we would say something like text choice plus equals paper. Else text choice is equal to scissors. Plus equals scissors. Okay. I like the string because it ultimately reduces the amount of stuff that we have to look at here on our screen, and thus is kind of elegant. So something of note here, right? If the user enters a 1, we'll show rock. If they enter a 2, we'll show paper. If they enter literally anything else, we're going to say that it is scissors. So the way this is currently working is we would be willing to accept, a 4, a 5. We would be willing to accept negative numbers and then assume that is scissors. We're going to look at maybe validating user input, but why don't we check out what we got so far? I'm going to, after I have figured out what they actually chose, display it back to them. Okay, let's try running this. I'm going to right click in free space, tell it to run. Let's play rock, paper, scissors, choose 1. It's waiting on me. I know it's waiting on me because I have this little red square over here indicating that I can stop the program. The only way I can stop the program is if it's running. So let's choose rock. Okay. Choose. This should be one. No. Let's try it again with paper. I want to go through all my possible options. I want to go through all my test cases here. Right, so a 2 gave us paper, a 3 is correctly giving us scissors, which is ultimately what I want. If we did a 4, that's what I was talking about, we still get scissors. I can do a negative, and we're still going to get scissors. Okay, So we have options. We could just let that be the case, like just let this work. That's not really an issue to me, but we could validate user input. Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at validating user input. Let's say I want to limit them to only 1, 2, or 3. Right? The earliest I can validate the input is the moment that I've got it. This is the moment that I've got user input, right here, right? Line 14. So let's validate it. I want to basically check to see that user input. I want to make sure that it's a 1, 2, or 3 before continuing. We've done this before with an if statement, but now that we know loops, right, the loops are much better because it asks the question over and over and over again, which means that once we get past the loop, we're guaranteed to have valid input. In our case, a 1, 2, or 3. So I'm going to use a loop, and I recommend a while loop here, not a for loop. So while I have bad input, how do I know? How do I know I have bad input? Well, if the choice does not equal 1 and the choice does not equal 2 and the choice does not equal 3, then it must be something else. Okay, if this is true, this means we have invalid input, invalid choice. Okay, another way that we could write this is kind of check for the number range. There's only 3 numbers here, so I think this is easy enough. But if we were checking for the number range, we would say that the choice is, if the choice is less than 1, or the choice is greater than 3, then that would make it invalid, right? That means it's outside of our number range. Okay, if this happens, if this is true, I have invalid input, I have an invalid choice. I want to get new information from the user. I basically want to do this again. Right? I'm going to just copy and paste that in. If we were doing this kind of a smarter manner, we would take this menu and save it into a string. That way I can just print that string again. I'm kind of okay with this. I probably won't be updating this, but that is something to consider, right? This is effectively duplicate code. So we can kind of reduce that by bringing in a string. Really, the way I'd want to reduce it is using something called a do-while loop, but that's outside of what we're learning. So notice I actually have an error message here. It says variable choice is already defined in the scope. Defined, declared. Right? We declared choice up here on line 14. It continues to exist all the way down here. So here on line 22, whenever I give this a data type, it's like I'm trying to recreate the variable all over again. That's not what I want to do, and it's, more importantly, a syntax error to try to do so. Choice already exists. I can't make a new variable called choice. I don't want to make a new variable. What I want to do is assign it a new value. Okay, let's kind of talk about what's happening. We welcome the user. We're then going to get their input. If it's invalid, we're going to prompt them to choose one again. Maybe I should say that it's invalid. Invalid choice. And then we display that choice, right? That's going to be a number. Choose one. Let's test out what we got, right? Because by the time I get down here to line 26, I must have a valid choice. And then it's easy to check for 1, 2, or 3. Right, let's run this. Let's play rock, paper, scissors. I'm going to try the 1. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to try the 3. So you see that this seems to be working. What if I do a 0? Invalid choice, 0, choose 1. How about 4? Invalid choice, 4, choose 1. So this is how the while loop ultimately is vastly different from an if statement, because if this was an if statement, it would have checked it, saw that I had a 0, told me it's invalid, and then I just would have entered a 4 and we would have went on with our merry way. But because of the loop, it gets checked over and over and over again. So it is impossible to enter an invalid number. Right? So what I mean is by the time we get here to line 26, I am guaranteed to have a valid choice. Choice is either 1, 2, or 3, thanks to this loop, thanks to us validating user input. So I've got user input. I'm actually ready for computer choice. Okay, for that one, we're going to do random. Right? I'm going to create my random object. This is red. I IntelliSensed, or didn't really IntelliSense. I went too fast, right? I was relying on this to do an import statement for me because ultimately there's 3 steps to implementing scanner. I need an import statement, which I managed to miss. We could manually add it. I was trying to IntelliSense it in step 2 where I'm creating my random object, but I typed too fast. I got too many words per minute, all right? If you do this, that's okay. You can hover over the red text, right? And then look, there's options. It says Alt-Shift-Enter, Alt-Enter. I'm going to hit Alt-Enter. And these are the options I have. And this is what I want to do. I want to import the class, right? So I'm going to choose that option. And you'll notice what it actually did was bring in that import statement. So this is step 1. This is step 2 to implementing random. I'm now ready to random a number, right? So I'm going to create an integer to save that number. I'm going to call it comp choice. Comp choice is going to be a random number in the range 1 to 3, inclusive on both ends. The way I do that is I take my random object and tell it to do the next int. Okay? I told you in the previous video that whatever you put in parentheses, think about it as number of possibilities. I only have 3 choices. So I'm going to plug in a 3. If I do that, my number range is 0 to 2, inclusive on both ends, right? There's 3 options there, 0, 1, 2, but it's not quite the numbers I want, right? If the user is working with the numbers 1, 2, and 3, I need the computer to also work with the numbers 1, 2, and 3. You could do some crazy math later on when making comparisons, but it's so much easier to put them on the same page right away by shifting this range. By adding 1, I just take whatever number I get and shift it, right? That shifts the range to be 1 to 3, inclusive on both ends. Why don't we print off the computer's choice so that we can actually see that, right? Just like with what we did here, we're going to do that for the computer. Okay, and just like with what we did up here, I think it makes a lot of sense to use a string, but here's the thing. Once I print off the text choice here on line 36, I'm kind of done with it. So instead of making a new one, I'm going to reuse this variable. I'm going to basically reset it. I'm going to say text choice is equal to computer chose. Okay, there's a very important distinction between this equal sign and this plus equals. By using this equal sign, I'm saying don't save the old value that you had, right? We just printed off something along the lines of you chose scissors. I am completely deleting that and saying text choice is now computer chose. I'm going to go through this same process where we tack on a value, right? I'm actually just even going to highlight, copy, and paste. So we see computer chose, choice equals 1, choice equals 2, and then we see our text choice. There's a minor problem with this. I'm basing my decision on choice. Choice is what the user picked. What I want to base it on is comp choice. So let's do that. I'm going to replace these checks on choice with checks on comp choice. And let's try this out. I'm going to tell my program to run. Let's play rock, paper, scissors. Choose one. I'm going to go with rock. And the computer chose rock. What would be super awesome is that you test it to make sure that the computer is choosing other things. There we see a paper. I've gotten rock and paper. And finally, I see a scissors. So the computer is choosing a random number between 1 and 3, inclusive on both ends. So both players at this point have made their choice. what we're going to do in the next video is pick up by determining a winner. Okay, that is something you can possibly do on your own, and I kind of invite you to do so. See if you can figure out how to determine a winner based on what you have, and we'll look at solutions in the next part.